Welcome back. You are watching Morning Rush, and thank you so much for making us part of your morning routine. By now, you should be having like the last drops of breakfast because it's almost time to get out the house if you haven't left already. Now, we absolutely appreciate your feedback, so do remember to send it through on the Zim Papers TV Network Facebook page or at ZTM Prime on Twitter and at ZTM Prime on Instagram. Now, just a quick reminder before we get into our conversation with our author for the day. Zuri Africa Zimbabwe is holding a pageant on the 29th of October at Talent Village. Zimbabwe will be crowning a contestant who will represent the nation at the Africa Grand Finale Talent Show and Expo in December at Sound City in South Africa. Now, you can be part of the local pageant, and all you have to do is answer a very simple question. That question for this week is, when was the first Zuri Africa Zimbabwe Queen pageant held? When was the first Zuri Africa Queen pageant held? And remember, as you answer this question, you need to include the hashtags, hashtag Morning Rush and hashtag My Culture, My Pride. Hashtag Morning Rush, hashtag My Culture, My Pride. When you answer the question, when was the first Zuri Africa Zimbabwe Queen pageant held? Very simple question, very easy. And this week we will start giving out those tickets. So please also make sure you are tuned in for that. Now, excuse me. As mentioned, it is Tuesday, and so we are talking books. We are getting you back into the culture of reading. I remember when I was in high school, I used to love reading so much. Any pocket money I got, I would run by, I think it was Kingston's bookstore. That was one that was next to us, right? Kingston's along Takawira, and I'd be buying myself books, and I'd be having a really good time, locking myself in my room and reading and driving everybody else in the house mad because they can't get hold of me. Basically, books were to us what the PlayStations are to this generation. So maybe we need to go backwards to the books. Now, my guest today is an author. Her name is Tendai Mutema, and her book is From Within Me. Tendai, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Tell us a little bit about you first. So how did you get into books and writing and all this?
I loved reading from a very early age. And the more I read, the more I wanted to write. So I chose journalism as my career because I loved writing. But along the way, I started a blog and I would be writing blog stories. And I realized that I need to start writing books because it's my passion.
So how did we get to from blogging to From Within Me?
Or my blog was focusing on issues of mental health. And the more I wrote, the more I realized how issues of childhood trauma are not really discussed, especially in our culture, because you'll hardly find someone talking about how they had a traumatic childhood, especially at the hands of their biological parents, because these are issues that are considered taboo. We do not want to brand our parents or our family as toxic people.
Right.
So the more I wrote the blog, the more I realized that there are a lot of people hurting, especially from adulthood issues that are emanating from childhood trauma. And I decided to compact those whole issues, issues of depression, suicide, so many of the problems in our society. And I slowly started writing chapter by chapter until I completed the book.
Now, before we actually get into the book, what is the relationship between childhood trauma and mental illness in adulthood?
All right. According to my research, psychologists say that most mental health issues that crop up in adulthood are deeply rooted in childhood abuse. So when a child is constantly abused, because they talk about post-traumatic stress disorder. So when a child goes through several traumatic experiences in life, it does a lot of mental damage. It kills their self-worth, their self-esteem. They generally do not know who they are. If it is physical abuse, they are used to always being beaten. If it is psychological or mental, they're called names: useless, pathetic. You have nothing good to offer. So because those are the formative years, right? The child now believes that's who they are, but they may not be aware of it. Now, these matters then crop up when you're an adult, right? For example, you're at work, you make a small slip up, and your mind tells you, you already are useless. And because of that, you do not have the drive to do better. And then we have issues of people turning to alcohol, drugs, just self-destructive behaviors.
Now, there is a running joke that we're a generation of broken children running around in adult bodies, simply because we don't discuss some of these issues. And you've mentioned, of course, drug and alcohol abuse, you've mentioned being self-destructive. But what are some of the other signs that, you know what, there are things you haven't dealt with in your life that are actually affecting you as an adult?
Anger, deep anger, when you feel the need to just be angry at everyone and everything. Just worthlessness, when you're not able to express yourself because you're seeking everyone's validation. Over pleasing others. You cannot say no, right? You're an adult, someone says, take me to the shops. You know you're busy, you know you're tired, but because you think you have to please everyone else to be accepted, right? So you generally live for other people and not you.
Now, if I'm to pick up from within me, what are the top 3 things you want me to have realized by the time I'm done reading it?
I want you to realize that you are your own person. You're not defined by whatever you have been through, especially if you've experienced childhood trauma. That as an adult, you have a decision and you can make a choice to rise above whatever trauma you had. There's also the issue of power, right? When you have power, treat it well. You know, don't abuse power, because there's a lot of abuse of power in the novel, but it comes from very small levels, right? And at the end of the day, take care of your mental health, because there's a lot of talk about depression and suicide in the book. So take care of your mental health.
We are adults who are now raising another generation. How do we start to break that cycle of trauma to ensure the next generation is not as damaged as we are and don't have to do as much healing?
First, we definitely have to go for counseling, professional counseling, with clinical psychologists. Some people definitely need to have their depression treated, antidepressants. Some have major depressive disorders. So to be a better parent, you have to heal first, so that you do not pass on the pain that you experienced to your children.
Thank you very much. Where do we find the book?
You can contact me on Facebook at Tendai Mutema, Instagram Tendai Mutema, and Twitter Tendai Mutema.
All right, Tendai, thank you so much for joining us, and hopefully you do get hold of her and you do get that book for the insight that it provides simply into how to deal with your mental health and how to make sure you are getting back to the right page, you are finding ways to deal. You know, like earlier on when we were talking about the Nyanga bus accident, I did say at the beginning of the show, if you are able to reach out to the children and give them grief therapy and give them, you know, any form of counseling that can help them deal with this. These are some of the things that we deal with. We deal with all sorts of tragic issues on a daily basis. Things are happening around us. Our loved ones are passing away. Sometimes it's not explained to us as children because they're like, you're just dealing with children. They don't know. But these are things that do affect us. So everybody basically needs to be able to address a lot of the things that hurt them as children in order for them to grow into a healthy, productive, responsible adult. But of course, Morning Rush for today has come to the end. Thank you so much for joining us and spending 2 hours of your morning with us. We hope you got you in the right mood for a winning day ahead. And of course, the rest of the week. Guys, keep pushing. It's almost Friday. Keep pushing. It's almost Friday. Thank you so much. My name is Candace. Be kind to each other, but be kind still to yourselves. We'll see you tomorrow bright-eyed and bushy-tailed here on Morning Rush. Goodbye.